guys, welcome back to my channel 100 Degrees of MNK. Today we're going to be discussing the most viral topic on the internet for the past 5 days, Who the F Did I Marry by Reesa Teesa. Before we get into this video, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification button so that you'll know every single time I drop a new video. Let's get into this. Today's discussion is going to be centered around the 3 things that I've learned from Reesa Teesa's Who the F Did I Marry? By now, many of you have watched the 50-part series about an Atlanta woman, Reesa Teesa, and her experience with a pathological ex-husband. Pathological liars lie without reason. Now, like many of you, I watched the 50-part series in shock, and instead of feeling a sense of judgment towards Reesa, I actually felt compassion for her. That compassion comes from me at one point being in a space of desperation and wanting to be loved and determined to be loved by any means necessary. The first thing that I learned from Reesa Teesa's story is the power of discernment. Now let's look up what discernment means. Discernment, according to the dictionary, is the ability to judge well. In Christian context, perception in the absence of judgment with a view to obtaining spiritual guidance and understanding. Pay attention to that. Obtaining spiritual guidance and understanding. If you remember from the first part of Reesa Teesa's Who the F Did I Marry, you remember her saying how her tires were blown out while on her way to her first date with Legion. At the time, Reesa had no reason to think about why her tires had blown out while on the way to this date. Now, if she was operating from a space of discernment, anyone operating from a space of discernment at the time would have probably seen her tires blowing out as, a sign to not move forward with this date. One thing that I appreciate while watching Reesa Teesa's 50-part series, Who the F Did I Marry, is her ability to take accountability through the process. She narrated the story in a way that allowed us, the audience, to really get the full scope of the story and really empathize with what she was going through or what she had gone through while dealing with this man. And she was so calm, so collected. You could tell that she's still healing, but she's on the other side. She's accepted the situation for what it was, and she is moving forward. I could relate to Reesa Teesa. I just wanted what I wanted, and I didn't pay attention to all the red flags that were presented to me. And now, after watching her video and thinking about my own experiences and watching so many other story times where women are giving their accounts of some really horrifying romance stories, one that I wouldn't wish on anyone. Another thing I learned from watching Reesa Teesa's Who the F Did I Marry is date at your highest self. Date at your higher self. Reesa explained that her reasoning for moving so fast with Legion was her lack of self-worth, her wanting to be attached to a man because she wanted a family, because she wanted marriage, and because she wanted to get that piece of the pie in this world where it says, for women, you have made it. She had trumped the status quo of, not being single and being a kept woman, being a woman that was provided for, being a woman that was cared for, being a woman that was made an honest woman by somebody else's son. And She admitted to being desperate and just wanting to be loved. That is a very dangerous place to be. I, for one, have made many mistakes operating from my lower self and attempting to date. Those two just don't mix at all. I've learned that I made some choices that I couldn't take back, that I can't take back, and found myself with some horrible men. Let me rephrase that, with some horrible experiences with men. And when I look back on it, a lot of these things could have been avoided had I just not dated while I was at my lower self. I think that's something that we all can take away from here. Like, do not date at your lower self. Date at your higher self. If you notice that you are still working through some things and you're not ready to date, then you probably should not be dating. If you know that you are easily triggered by certain things, then you definitely have no business dating. As quickly as this relationship started, it ended. There were other women before Reesa with this Legion guy, and they all have similar stories. Reesa, luckily for her, it took her a year to get out, but at least I can say she got out in a good amount of time. You know, for someone who went into this marriage, this relationship, while being at her lower self, I'm so happy that she got out as soon as she could. Some women are not able to leave up until there's nothing left of themselves. Some women, it takes years and years and years until their stress levels are through the roof, until their health starts to decline, until their beauty starts to fade, and when they wake up one day and take a look at themselves in the mirror, they're unrecognizable because they've spent so much of their good years giving it to the wrong person, giving it to the wrong man. The power of choosing yourself every time and not feeling afraid to choose yourself, regardless of what's happening around you, it's so rewarding. Watching Reesa's 50-part series only made me think of how many women are out there in broken relationships, broken marriages, but they're sticking around because they don't want to seem and appear as failures in society. You know, they don't want to feel like they failed against the status quo. And I can definitely relate to that feeling of feeling like, well, damn, this is another Valentine's Day I'm single. This is another year where I'm watching my high school classmates get married, get engaged, start families. And it's a lot of pressure, even though for me, mentally, physically, emotionally, I'm not in that space to say that I see myself getting married within the next 2 to 3 years. It's always something that when you see it happening for everyone else but yourself, you start to look at yourself every now and then like, well, what am I doing? You know, why haven't I experienced that? And for me, I wake up and I choose myself every day. There are relationships that no matter how badly the man begged or decided that he was going to do better, I would never go back to that. I would never go back to anything or anyone that made me feel less than, that made me feel like I was unworthy. And that is the most powerful thing that a woman can have, is the power of choosing herself. And that's the scariest thing for any man. When a woman chooses herself, regardless of the situation, regardless of how embarrassing it looks, regardless of how much she loves you, then you know for a fact that she is never coming back. That's my spiel on the things that I've learned from Reesa Teesa's WhoTFDidIMarry. Now, I did see some merch online, and I had to verify that it wasn't Reesa Teesa's merch. So if you want to support her, the merch is directly on her TikTok I'm going to be getting me some Reesa Teesa's Who the F Did I Marry t-shirts, because spring is coming up and t-shirt season will be upon us. So with that being said, thank you so much for joining me here today for Candid Talks on the Fierce Femme Energy podcast. Be sure to click that like button, make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit that notification bell so that you know when I drop a new video.